Right there, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. Another video on Old Red, our Project 1983 Peterbilt 359. Now today's video, I've been running this truck for right about 2 weeks since we had the engine put in, and I've got right about 5,000 miles on it here right now. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to drop the oil. We're going to cut open the oil filter, check that, make sure that we don't have anything weird going on. Truck's been running fantastic. I'm really not too worried about it, but you don't really want to try to run full oil change cycles for at least the first couple oil changes. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing fired up, get it moved over to the shop, and we're going to change oil, grease the truck, do more or less a full service on it, and get this thing ready to go for another week. So anyway, let's get to it. So we're about to get started on doing our oil change on this. Like I said, we got about 5,000 miles on this oil, about 5,000 miles on this engine. It's actually, I think, 5,200. But you want to drop your oil early, your first couple oil changes on a new motor. You know, this thing had a full out-of-frame in-frame before it went in this truck here. So I guess it wouldn't be an out-of-frame in-frame, it would be an out-of-frame rebuild. But anyway, you're going to tend to have more wear metals your first few thousand miles. You know, you got a lot of new parts against new parts that got to wear in and stuff. Your rings are seating. You know, it's going to increase the amount of wear metals that you get in your oil, so you wanted to go ahead and drop your oil early. Plus, it gives you an opportunity to catch any potential problems before they cause you big problems. So that's what we're going to do here today. Now, there's a few things that I wanted to have for this oil change that I didn't. It only took me about 2 weeks to put 5,000 miles on this truck, so put some miles on pretty quick, and I guess I didn't think to order a few things ahead. Alright, so now one of the things I wanted to get for this oil change was a quick release, you know, quarter thumb screw drain valve for this. There's a few advantages and disadvantages to those. The main advantages are you can use a smaller drain bucket that's a lot easier to handle because you can start and stop the flow of oil. They do drain a lot slower, but that's typically not an issue because you've got plenty of other things to do while your oil's draining when you're doing a service on a truck. So it's kind of nice to be able to not have to dump 11 gallons all into one bucket at one time. They also save some wear and tear on the threads on the oil pan, which is nice. Oh, dang it. Where'd you go? There you are. So we do have a magnetic drain plug here. There's a very small amount of fine material on the magnet, nothing I'm terribly concerned about. Let's go ahead and clean my hand in this up while that oil drains out. You can see just a very small amount of fine material. Not seeing any large chunks in there. A couple things that look like they could be large chunks, but they're just small fine material that's stuck together, so I'm okay with that. Go ahead and shift our drain pan here a little bit. we get under the filter a little better. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to punch a hole in the bottom of the oil filter. That way the oil filter can drain and it's a bit cleaner to get the oil filter on and off. Okay, so now that the flow of oil out of the filter is slowed down, we're going to go ahead and crack the filter loose. That is a girthy oil filter. Go ahead and crack that loose, then it'll probably start, yep, see. Now that we broke the seal on that, it's draining out a bit faster again. So we're going to go ahead and let that continue to drain. Alright, so this rear drain here is pretty much finished draining now. So we can go ahead and put our plug back in. Going to shift this oil pan once again here. Go ahead and snug this up. Whew. One thing I'm curious about, you guys running cats, you guys normally drain this every oil change? I wouldn't be that concerned about it. Doesn't look like this really holds much more than maybe a quart of oil. But I'd like to be able to inspect everything here and have all fresh oil in it, so I'm going ahead and doing this. Looks like we've got zero metal on that. Check in here. That feels pretty good. Yeah, I'd say that was less than a quart of oil that was in there. Hey, now this filter's done draining. We're going to go ahead and pull this off. Alright, now in the video where I went and brought this truck home from getting this engine done, a lot of you guys gave me kind of a hard time about not having cat filters on it. Well, here's the deal. I didn't put those filters on the truck. The shop did, and that's what they put on it. They put Fleet Guard filters on it. Now I was gonna put a cat filter on this truck on this oil change. That was my plan. I do normally prefer to run OEM filters because then there's no question on whether it meets the spec that the engine calls for or not. However, I didn't think ahead, and I tried to go get one today, and the place I went didn't have one. I might have been able to find one if I drove all over town this morning, but I didn't really want to do that, so we're putting a Napa Gold on it this time. Now remember, our first two oil changes, we're not going to be running a full oil change cycle. This oil change I'm dropping at 5,000. I'll probably drop about 7,500 on the next one, and then after that I'll go to my normal 10 to 12,000 mile oil changes. So I'll be a little more prepared next time, and I'll get a cat filter before it's due for that oil change. And then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this filter, the one that we just took off, and the cat oil filter after we run that one through its oil change cycle. And we're going to open them all up and look at the difference in construction. I don't have any way to test the filtering abilities, but we can compare the OEM specs of what they say that their filter will filter to. But Napa Gold, Wix, and Fleet Guard are all typically pretty high quality filters. I don't worry too much about running any of those. But like I said, I do prefer, given the option to run the OEM filters. Your cost per mile difference is so small to spend a couple extra bucks on an oil filter that it really doesn't matter. So there's that. But we got this filter pre-filled here now. You're going to go ahead and put it on the engine. Never over tighten your oil filters, or you have a hell of a time getting them back off. Just snug them down. You don't need to reef these things on here. You'll thank yourself on the next oil change. Alright, then with paint marker, just go ahead and put my mileage and the date on there. Now, I talked about this once before in another video, but I buy my oil in 5-gallon buckets. My price, what I buy it for in the 5-gallon bucket, is less than $1 per gallon difference than if I buy it in a 55-gallon drum. Actually, I think it's more like 20 cents a gallon difference. And the 5-gallon buckets are a lot easier to manage. You know, I've got a hand pump, so it's nice and clean. It would be nice to get one with some kind of an electric pump or something, but this works just fine for me. I'm not changing oil every day, but this is just a convenient way to do it for me. And I get pretty good price on the 5-gallon bucket, so it's really not worth it to me to get it in a 55-gallon drum or even a 250-gallon tote. It does take a few minutes to hand pump out, you know, 10 gallons, 11 gallons of oil, whatever this is going to end up holding here. But it's really not hard. It's not that big of a deal, and it works well for me. Alright, so with exactly 10 gallons of oil between filling the oil filter and putting it in the crankcase, we are right on the full mark. I know it's almost impossible to see on the dipstick there unless you get the light shining on it just right. This oil, even though it looked kind of dark coming out of the oil drain plug, it was just starting to get a slight honey color on the dipstick when we dropped it, so it is perfectly clear here now. We're going to go ahead and put the fill plug back in, fire up the truck, let it run just a minute or two, check, make sure our oil filter's not leaking, all that good happy stuff, and then we'll go ahead and double check the oil level, make sure that we're good to go. Alright, so one thing I like to do on a new engine especially is go ahead and cut the filter open and inspect the inside of the filter. This gives you a good idea if there's anything bad going on inside of the engine. Now, I'm sure somebody's going to ask about sending in oil samples, getting a lab analysis done on on an oil sample, and you know, in my experience, I haven't found that to be terribly beneficial. I know on my Mack truck, that truck ate a camshaft at one point. I mean, just totally ate some of the lobes off of the camshaft. And because that truck's got a really good oil filtration system on it, I had sent in an oil sample while I was trying to diagnose the issue, and it did not come back with anything Chevelle. Didn't come back with anything remotely resembling the issues I was having as far as an oil analysis. So I don't know, that kind of made me lose faith a little bit in that system. Every time I've ever used this oil filter cutter on YouTube, I always get questions about it. Pretty much any speed shop sell these, Summit Racing, whatever. Because it's very common when people build high performance engines, they want to be able to open their oil filters and inspect things. And this works basically like a giant tubing cutter, so you won't get any metal from cutting the oil filter open into your filter. So here's our filter element. Nice heavy duty spring. We're going to want to look in the bottom of the oil filter. You guys can see that looks nice and clean. I'm not seeing any bearing material or anything like that. There's a couple little chunks of something here. Let's see if we can grab one of those and pull that out. Yeah, not seeing anything I would be concerned about for a new engine. There's no glitter on the oil filter pleats. If you open this filter up and it looks like a bass boat on the inside, you got major problems. We're not seeing that. Pretty happy with that. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hold on to this. I'll do the same thing on the next one, then I'll do the same thing on a cat filter so we can look at the differences in how these filters are constructed down the road. But yeah, overall pretty happy with that. Go ahead and put this off to the side. Alright, so it's now the end of the day on Thursday, and I kind of forgot that I didn't record a conclusion to this video till I went to go edit it. I got sidetracked. So anyway, we're sitting at about 2,400 miles right now so far for the week since we changed the oil. Everything's working exactly as it should. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe down below. Thank you. Have a great day.